Let me take a moment and talk about Riverside.fm. It allows you to record studio quality audio and up to 4K video. When you need to record audio and video, Riverside.fm can do it. So if you're looking for a hero platform for all your recording needs, from podcasts to webinars to any video content, Riverside.fm. I've got a promo code for you where you'll receive a 30% discount on the first 3 months of your subscription. I'll give it to you twice. The promo code is SHIPIT. All one word, SHIPIT, and you'll pick up a 30% discount on your first 3 months of your subscription. Riverside.fm.
In this episode of the Scandals and Scoundrels of Football series, we will take a deep dive look into the controversial advent of professional football. It's the Pittsburgh Athletic Club against the Allegheny Athletic Association. This story and more in a moment.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history on a day-to-day basis. Your host, Darren Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time. So as we come out of the tunnel of the Sports History Network, let's take the field and go no huddle through the portal of positive gridiron history with pigskindispatch.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of pigskindispatch.com, your portal to positive football history. And what could be more positive than football history than the dawning of professional football? And that's the story we're going to talk about today and the controversy arising around this very first game. Well, it all starts back in 1892. In Pennsylvania, there was a real hotbed in the early football in the 1890s. We know that the East Coast colleges of what we now call the Ivy League schools today developed the game, especially the likes of Harvard, Yale, and Princeton. We also know that the Canadian School of McGill had a ton of influence on the game, even to get it into the American East Coast schools. But the Gritters of Pennsylvania took it to a whole new level, though. The excitement of football spread rampantly in the late 1880s, and non-collegiate teams popped up at social clubs around various places, and they were often referred to as Club 11s. The southwest corner of Pennsylvania really thrived with club football in the 1890s. Christopher Mendez of the PSU.org website back in 2010 has a very insightful article on the early football club program. These clubs rivaled one another, and they played competitively in organized games. On October 11, 1890, the Allegheny Athletic Association challenged Western University, who is now called the University of Pittsburgh, to a game. This is what many consider the first game of football played in the Keystone State. The competitive level was growing, and the other teams sprouted up. One at the East End Gymnasium Club entered the fray of Pittsburgh Club 11s. Mendez's article fills us in. A successful first season, the club's reputation grew amongst football enthusiasts far and wide. Their growing fame allowed them to change their name to the Pittsburgh Athletic Club, or PAC. Following their recent success, the PAC felt entitled to challenge the well-established Allegheny Athletic Club, or the 3A's as they were better known. On Columbus Day 1892, these two teams met, and the result was a 6-all draw. This only added to the intensity of the rivalry. These teams wanted to defeat each other from bragging rights for being the top team in the Pittsburgh area. They also scheduled a rematch and each upped the ante by revising their rosters. Let's let it be known that playing for pay in the game of football at this time was highly looked down upon. In fact, an organization called the Amateur Athletic Union was formed to investigate and deter teams from bringing on hired hands to win ball games. The intentions of the union were good, but extremely ineffective, as they had little power or authority over the teams. The Penn State Post adds this: the AAA and the PAC implemented clever techniques to ensure compensation for their athletes without violating union rules. One technique widely used in the era was the double expense money technique. Instead of awarding straight cash incentives in this idea, clubs would reward their top players with gifts, which they would turn into pawn for cash. This would often be done in the form of trophies or pocket watches. So the recruiting of talent and the gifting of some of the perks heated up in this AAA versus PAC rematch. William Kirshner, he was a pretty well-known, respected player of the era, and he also coached the Pittsburgh Athletic Club. He was compensated quite well for his coaching. I'm using air quotes here. However, he did log playing time as well, and a lot of it. Kirshner received the double pay expenses for about half the season until he was injured and unable to help the PAC further. So they looked for another person to help. They turned their attention to the Chicago Athletic Association and a guard that played there named William Pudge Heffelfinger. You remember Pudge Heffelfinger? He was a former Yale star who helped the Eli win multiple national titles. The PAC brought in Pudge Heffelfinger for the tidy sum of $250 to play against AAA. And on October 30th, 1892, the Pittsburgh Press heard about the hiring and posted an article accusing the PAC of paying Heffelfinger and another player, Knowlton Snake Ames, to play against AAA. But Knowlton Ames, you remember him too. He is in the College Football Hall of Fame, so another outstanding player. Both these guys are Hall of Fame material in the College Football Hall of Fame. Oh, but the plot thickened. Okay, the story was shady enough to make their scandal criteria for the series, but it went even further to the dark side. Chris Mendez's story in that famous Penn State article fills us in. Just as the PAC was looking for ways to strengthen its roster, the AAA was simultaneously speaking with Ben Sport Donnelly and Ed Malley, offering both double expense money. Once word spread, the club began to pursue Heffelfinger and Ames as well. They began offering them $250 each for the game, but were unsuccessful. Ames refused to accept the cash incentive in fear of losing his amateur status, while Heffelfinger was simply interested in more money. Pushing further, the AAA offered Heffelfinger $500 plus $25 for travel expenses, which he gladly accepted. So he sort of double-crossed the PAC, who only was going to give him $250. He doubled his money, plus got $25 expenses from the PAC. It was finally game day for that PAC-AAA rematch on November 12, 1892 at AAA Park. A throng of over 3,000 spectators witnessed Heffelfinger, Sport Donnelly, and Ed Malley jog onto the field sporting their AAA jerseys. Remember, Knowlton Ames declined the offers, worrying about his amateur status, so he was out of the picture for this game. The PAC brass immediately started crying foul, pointing to the wrongdoing. They accused AAA of paying the three players in a deed that they themselves had tried but failed to accomplish. A squabble between the coaches and team captains delayed the start of the contest for a bit. Eventually, an agreement to play was come upon, but the game would now be an exhibition, which, with this status, that meant that all gambling on the game could not occur. The AAA fans were livid because they couldn't bet on the game, and the PAC faithful were miffed about the Chicago recruits. The fans noticeably were not enthused during the contest because of the exhibition status and everything that happened before the game started. And there was a light sprinkle that cooled off the fervor. Just sitting out there in the rain when all this stuff happened before the game even started took some of the flavor out of that game. But the game was played, and Heffelfinger let his presence be known as he caused a first half fumble and took it all the way in for a touchdown. And a touchdown at that time was worth only 4 points at the time. And that was the only scoring in this shortened game. It was shortened because of darkness, as AAA had the score of 4, PAC 0. Well, from almost 8 decades, many thought that the 1895 paying of John Brailier, he was the first professional game. It wasn't until these 80 years passed that the receipts proving that Pudge and the others took money from the AAA proved otherwise. So we have a slew of scoundrels in this scandal. Both the PAC and the AAA fill the bill in the three players, Malley, Donnelly, and Heffelfinger. Well, we may look at them as pioneers of pro football today, But in 1892, the viewpoint was somewhat different. Now, so, we have these Scoundrels, these AAA and the PAC, so competitive against each other, went against the standards of the day and the ethics of the day, and against the amateur union rules, and still paid players, and just did it in sneaky ways. But eventually it came out in the wash, and we're gonna have more on this professional football here in a couple days, and talk more about Pudge Heffelfinger and how this whole thing was discovered some 80 years later, and a little bit about John Bralier too. So glad that you joined us today. We hope that you gathered some information and were enlightened a little bit about professional football history and how it all started, with a little bit of a scandal and controversy, and a couple shady teams, 3 shady players. And actually, the good guy of this whole thing was probably Knowlton Ames. Old Snake Ames, he wanted to keep his amateur status. He was the good guy. He bailed out of this before money was handed to him, and was probably the smart one of the bunch. Well, maybe not, because he didn't make any money off it. But we'll put his name to the record to this day. Some 130, 40 years later, we're going to tell you that Knowlton Ames, good dude, not a scoundrel like these other guys were in this big scandal that happened in 1892 to start pro football. Hope you enjoyed this today. We'll talk to you later tomorrow. Have a great Gridiron Day. That's all the football history we have today, folks. Join us back tomorrow for more of your football history. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff, for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Are you having a hard time figuring out what to get Dad for Father's Day? You should check out Row 1 Brand's Vintage Pictorum Gallery. They have America's best sports art. With over 7,200 historic sports prints, you're assured to find something unique for Dad this Father's Day. Instead of a boring old tie, get him a historic baseball photo taken by Henry High Sandom at the historic Polo Grounds Stadium in New York City during the 1894 Temple Cup. Or, if he's an NFL buff, check out the 1963 vintage NFL poster. These are so good looking that you'll be amazed how they turn out. Shop now at sportshistorynetwork.com/row1 and save 15% off your order.